Alright, so I finally got a chance to shoot the green screen video. I had to ghetto it up in my garage. It's like on my rafters and stuff. It worked. So on the same folder where you would have all the footage, there's a green screen footage. There's 2 videos. You can pick which one you want to use. I'm going to pause this video. What? I know. Nope, I'm not meant for the camera. Your first step in that is to go through and green screen, yes. Save that. Bring in After Effects and cut out exactly what you need. You'll see, because I'm my own cameraman too, that I went behind the camera, I recorded it, I walked out in front, I recorded, obviously you don't need the whole thing. So I went through After Effects and just cut off the front, cut off the end, and got exactly what I needed. There's even, I pretty much go right till I start to look down. Obviously that wouldn't be an ideal shot to use where I look down. If we needed those extra frames, you could actually go back to where my eyes are open about here, and you could actually like cut the eyes out and paste them where they would be, and so it looks like I'm still looking at the camera if you needed those extra couple frames, okay? In movies, sometimes where they're doing gun battles and they have like the blanks, sometimes the actors will still blink or they'll flinch, and they have to go through and actually like put the eyes so they're not blinking or flinching while they're doing that. And then sometimes too, because the guns go off so fast, the spark or the burst, yeah, the thing from the gun, sometimes the camera don't even record the entire thing or even at all. Sometimes it'll record like half of a burst. Sometimes it'll record no burst at all, and you have to go back and put a burst into those things too, which is crazy. So you cut it out, you get a sequence, and then you go into Nuke with it. And I only did, because of the limitation of my garage, I did not do a full screen, so that makes your job a little bit easier too, so you don't have to put me actually like standing back there, because that would have been awkward too, I think, being a little too far back. So Nuke doesn't have audio, so we won't see any audio here, but you can see if I skip to actually where I start interacting with stuff. There's my app. And it's going obviously super slow. And then I'll skip to, I think, about here. There's the robot arm. I have to adjust its position. It's not exactly where I wanted it. I think I may even just start it there where it's like moving around. Cool. All right, so now let's see how we do all this stuff. And not stop on that frame. That's a weird frame to stop on. Where is my stuff? So I kind of reset this thing up, so just so you can see how I did it. So that's the footage I said to use, just so you can see how I have it set up. I went through and I did my projections, so I have my 3 basically, one for the left wall, one for the right wall, and then one for like the ground and the ceiling and that back wall. That's how I set mine up. Probably sometime around the beginning of class, I said always look at the different buttons, look at different menus, see what's available. And I'm going to show this to you now because why not, right? When you do your bake, I don't know if anyone's ever clicked on this to see if there's other stuff there, but there's other stuff there. One of the things is projection. So all those things that you make a projection, you make the camera, you make all that stuff, it does it for you, okay? So if I want to make a projection, let me just look at my model builder and make sure that I'm in 3D mode, make sure my camera's locked, make sure I'm on camera 7, make sure this is not on that, but it's on wireframe, there we go. So if I want to make a projection at this frame right here, I would say go bake the projection. It gives you an error, just ignore the error. I would bake the geometry. Oops, I didn't pick the geometry. There we go. And then that builds that's not the right one. There it is. Oops. There it is. So here's the piece of geometry. Here's the camera. Here's the hold frames. Here's the projection image. And then here is the projection, and then this is where the piece of geometry would go between. So 2 button clicks, that whole setup that you did could be done. So like I said before, look around, see what other buttons are out there, because there's a lot of stuff. So that's how I set up that initial thing. This first scene right here, I'm going to pull that off. I don't need that. This is just my image, okay? That's just my flattened out image of what this looks like in the scene. You'll notice that there's a big glare right here. That's because I have one light in the scene. It's really bright. It's really shiny. It darkens the background and brings more focus there. The process for this that we've done is limiting. We don't have the ability to walk around this room now because we didn't build an entire room. We built walls and projected pictures on them. For instance, I don't know if anyone's noticed this, besides that line right there, my leg for this table is like bent, okay? Because in one image, the table leg's like this, another image, the table leg is like that. So you don't have the freedom to walk around the entire room. This is something just to give us, like I said before, a little bit of room in here. So I can go to my rotate Y and rotate a little bit and make it feel like maybe there's a little bit of camera movement on here, okay? Same thing with the movement, I can move it, but again, I'm kind of limited as to how far I can move it. If I go too far this way, you'll see my reflections look horrible. If I go too far the other way, I would, have the same thing. They're stretching the other way, and I'm actually like cutting off. So there's limitations to it, but for a quick way to be able to build the scene, it works. You could also use this kind of technique to create depth in the scene. So if I want to do something like depth of field, I can use this rendering to do that. So inside this scanline render, if I zoom in, you can see there's all of these different colors at the bottom. So there's red, green, blue, white, purple, magenta, and cyan. If I go up here, here's the alpha channel, which is the white indicator, so it's solid, which is fine. There's also a depth indicator, and we can't see a whole lot in there, but if you look at that red value is definitely updating. And what it's basically doing is measuring how far from the camera items are in the scene. So if I want to do certain effects, like if you look at photography of landscapes, stuff that's way in the distance is usually desaturated and sometimes fuzzy. So we could create that effect inside Nuke by using the depth channel to do that. There's, also a motion vector pass. Some of these aren't even set up because you have to set them up inside here. But just be aware that there's other stuff that you can do with these things. Okay, for this we're not doing it. All right, so that's that. All right, so to green screen footage removal stuff, I brought in my footage. So there it is. That's a horrible shot. Let's find it a frame. That's better. And then I added this node, and that's how you can remove green screens. Just drop that node in there, and you'll see it's like here it is before. There it is after, and it just cuts it right out. That's not a real node. So this is a group, and I showed these probably at the beginning of the class. They allow you to take a cluster of things, group them together, and then put them somewhere else. So let's say that I shot 45 different scenes with a green screen, and I wanted to remove the green screen from all of these different shots. Instead of running a whole bunch of stuff, this is what it looks like. All of these things here to get the green screen to work and to be cut out, I could just copy this one node and paste it there, and then it would work regardless. Green screen removal. There we go. It's a better name for it, right? So let's look at how this works. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste it here so we can go from the beginning. So this green screen, because it was lit by a master green screen lighter and actor and everything, it works pretty good. So if I go into here and I add key light connects. There's 4 arrows down here, which is definitely going to be confusing. They all have a purpose. The source is the only one we're going to use in this instance, so I'm going to connect the source. And what key light is going to do is it's going to allow us to pick this color green and then control how transparent the green is and how big that area is, okay? Just to give you a before of, the keyer we used before. All right, so we'll look at this luminance keyer. Luminance just means brightness, so it really wouldn't do anything for brightness because if I look at the alpha channel now, come on, there we go, and then I start to play with these values, you'll see that my shirt is probably the brightest thing in the scene. And so regardless of how much I play with this, I'm never going to get anything because that's just a luminance keyer. There is a green screen keyer, and you'll see that it can do an okay job, but it's not really cutting out as much as we would like. You'll see it's actually starting to eat into my shirt here as well because it probably has like flecks of green or something in there. So this keyer is very limiting. We basically just have these sliders and that's it. So key light is a great tool to use for this kind of thing. After Effects also uses key light, so if you're comfortable with key light in After Effects or Nuke, it goes back and forth because it's the same thing. So inside here there is key light 1.2. You'll see these buttons and sliders are very similar between the two programs. So it's a great keyer to use and get comfortable with. So the first thing we have to do is tell it what we're keying out. So here's our screen color, and right now it's set to black, so it's keying out black. So I'm going to click on this, which is the eyedropper, and it doesn't work like every other software. If I just click, that does nothing. You have to control and then click. Okay? When you control click, it actually puts a little dot right there. If I control click and drag, it'll let me adjust it. Now you'll see it's kind of flickering. What it's doing is every time I control drag, it's choosing a different color. So right now, the color is green that's on the screen. So when I control click, it picks green. Oops. When I control click again, what color is it going to pick? Black, right? So it's kind of like weird how it does that, but that's how it does it. If I control shift click and drag, it'll make a little marquee region, and it always samples that little region as far as like what it is. It's basically taking the average of that area, okay? And then I control shift click and get rid of that. And then if I control alt click and drag, it's always going to be sampling the original image. It's not going to be updating like it was doing before, okay? So you won't see it flickering black and green, black and green. It's locked up for a second. There it goes. It's always going to be picking something different, okay? So the green that we want, and this may seem like a silly thing to even, silly sentence to even say, but we have to pick a specific green that's inside of this area, okay? This green is obviously not uniform. Some areas are brighter, some areas are darker. We want to find something that's pretty much in the middle so that we can go to either side of this to capture all that green, okay? So don't worry about, trying to analyze it too much. Go to the eyedropper, control, click on the thing, like, not right behind me, because you'll see it actually, oops, there we go. It may not pick up everything, but like maybe over by my shoulder area here. Okay, so that's pretty good. Now I want to always look at the alpha channel. The whole point of a key light or a keyer is that we're building an alpha channel. So I'm going to hit A so I can see the alpha channel, and that's what it's looking like so far. So you'll see that it is cutting out the green here. If I look close, we'll see values that are still there. Okay, that's stuff you typically don't want. If I were to put this image on top of something, we would see little bits of green kind of fleckling in the background. So I'm going to come down here to my screen mat. And this is where you can start to play. Like everything in here you can really play with and just see what it does. But typically I jump right to the clip black and clip white. So think of this like you're adjusting the contrast of the green, the different values of it. So as I go here to the clip black, you'll see how a lot of that just goes away. Okay? And as I go to the clip white, it's going to do the opposite. So anything that is pretty white like this will get brighter white. clipping black. Anything that is a lighter gray will turn black. So I go this way, and you'll see how the white is just getting brighter. So I'm going to clip a lot of the black out of this. And then you'll see that my outfit starts getting eaten away a little bit. So I'm going to start clipping the white now and bring that back. I think that's good. So you want to have a look around because sometimes you'll get like little spots like that. And I can hit A to verify, yep, that's definitely not one that I would want. That doesn't make sense being there. Cool. Okay, and then I'm just going back and forth just to kind of verify that I've gotten everything. Cool. So that is good. I'm going to turn my eyedropper off here because I don't need that anymore. I'm going to control click out here, or control shift click out there to get rid of the dot. All right, so that's a pretty clean, clean mask. Okay, some masks are not that simple. Because I don't have long flowing hair that is blonde, I didn't get any green spill in my hair or reflecting into the background or that was transparent. When you have stuff like that, your keyer gets a lot more complex. Sometimes you have to key the body and then key the head and then key the hair edges all separately and then put them all together, okay? So luckily we didn't have to deal with that. Cool, so that looks like it works pretty good. I next want to test this. So you can test this any way you want. If you add a constant with a color, oops, obviously not green, like that should be good, okay? And I drop it into background. And then it thinks. Oh, composite. I didn't click composite. There it is. Now the constant is smaller. It's 960 by 540. My footage is 1280, so I'll just change the size of this. There we go. And then I'm going to look at the edges because what I want to do is make sure that I'm not getting any like jagged edges. There's a little bit here, but not terrible. And then I'm also making sure that I'm not eating away at too much stuff. If I go to my key light, and I remember this is 0.67 and 815, if I pull these numbers too much, what you'll see is that I start eating away at parts of the character. Oops, that's the wrong way. Let me go this way. There you go. So now you can see how that blue is now shining through me because I've green screened too much out of it, okay? So you have to be on the lookout for all these different things. My outfit choice was a very appropriate one, not just because it says Sean Sarcone Instructor on it, but because I made sure that it was a good, clean color that would stand out against the white, okay? Same thing with my jeans, same thing with the rest of the environment, just kind of made sure everything was good with that. When I videotape this, if you ever shot your own green screen stuff, you basically want to have the green screen as far away from you as possible so you're not casting shadows onto it because that will be another thing that can cause issues. You want to light the green screen as flat as possible. You'll see in here I couldn't get this perfectly flat just because it's basically just a 15 by 30 inch blanket. And so I had to hang it from this area, and that's the best I could get it, but it works, so it's fine. The green screen wall is great, but the problem with the wall is that there's no flooring, so you actually have to like drape it out. But I'm pretty far away from this, and I have actually 2 lights in here that are shining on this area, and then 2 lights that are shining on me. 3 lights that are shining on me. Cool. All right, so that works. So I'm cut out. That's good. So you can see another keyer because it's important, again, just to see what other things are available. There's one called Primat. And if I go to my foreground and I hit 1, let me close this. This has a couple options. This one lets me actually like crop, like this is where I want you to key. Okay, like that's just a default option. This one has all of their stuff, all of their operations, all their tools is in this one list. So basically you go through this list and you just start at the top and you work your way down to get your green screen removed. So the first thing is select background color. I'm going to make this a bit bigger. So I'm going to use my Control Shift, click the background color, and now that's gone. I'm going to hit A so I can see what it looks like. And you'll see that even though it looks like it's pretty much gone, it's not. There's still a lot of stuff there. So now I'm going to go to my clean background noise, and I'm going to Control drag. And what this does is it removes the background. So it's sampling the background color and actually removing it. And if I Control Shift drag as I do this, it'll grab more of that information. So that's pretty good there, and there, and there. So I'm trying to find all the little marks where it missed it. All right, now I'm going to go to the next one, which is clean foreground noise. And what this allows me to do is if there's any areas where maybe there's some green popping through, I can Control click those areas to get those to go away. If I look at my key light one and I look at my Primat one, and I'll even use the same constant so I can compare them, you know, the same to same. You'll notice that there's a big difference in the edges of these two, right? So here's my key light one, very jagged edges. Here's Primat, much softer, okay? On my Primat one, yeah, that's working pretty good actually too. Yeah, there's some, okay? We're getting a little bit of haloing happening here. So basically my edges are just a little bit too blurry, right? It's a little bit of green is kind of coming through, and so it's kind of getting rid of that. So I could try doing some clean foreground noise and maybe make that a little bit crisper so I don't get it. But now I'm getting some more green, so maybe I'll do some clean background noise on here. Yep, still getting some green there, okay? Now I could even come down here. There's one called, there's Matte Sponge and some other ones that you could play with. There's a spill. And what this does is it basically like removes the green spilling onto the person. So if I had a white shirt on and there was a big white card in front of me and the light bounces off the green, hits the card and hits me, I would have some green inside my clothing. I'm getting a little bit of spill right here on my arm. There's some green happening. So if I go to the spill plus and I Control click, oops, nope, sorry, spill minus, that was the right one. Okay, it's going to start to remove it. Now this is one of the bad things about Primat is that there really is no undo button here. So I can hit undo, and it'll go back to a certain point, but it won't get rid of everything. If I pick a wrong color, like for my clean background or foreground noise, it's like stuck. You have to basically delete the node and then get it back, or there's a reset button you can hit. Okay? So in any of the keyers you're ever going to use, you always want to look at the edges, you want to look at the character. You also want to be aware of any color shifts. So sometimes one of the issues with Primat and with cleaning up stuff like spill is that you could actually change the color of your character, okay? If I look at the, well, I'll just go to key light so we can see it, and then I'll go to that one, okay? If I look at the before and after, you can see right here, you can kind of see it. We're getting a little bit of a color change, right? Especially around the shoulders too. I'm getting a little bit of a halo with Primat, a little bit of greens coming through. Okay, probably over here too, yep. Okay, so that's stuff that you always want to be on the lookout for when you're doing keying, is to play with those. Now inside here there's also a bunch of sliders. You could go here to the fine tuning sliders and play with the spill on each one of these things. Oops. Make sure you're looking at the right one. There we go. I'm not seeing a whole lot there happening. Oops, not the right one. Oh, it was just not updating, that's why. we're not going to use prime it anyway, so we use key light. Okay, cool. So that gets us around me cut out, but you'll see that the rest of the scene is obviously not cut out. That needs to be cut out. So I'm going to use a rotoscope after this. I'm going to delete the constant because that's just kind of a placeholder. And my rotoscope is just going to cover the area that the green screen didn't remove. So in this case, all of that. Now, we're building the alpha channel, so I'm going to hit A up here. And what I want to do is take this area here and keep this area as being transparent, and then the rest of this I want to be gone. So I'm going to invert it. Okay, so now basically it's keeping all this stuff. And then I'm going to set this to minus, which will subtract that area. Okay? And so now I should have, whoops, I apparently missed a couple spots. Come on. Let's add some points here, here, and here. And up there. And then I can go to remove points and just remove these corners. I have to be careful on this side because my arm does go closer to the edge there. And as I'm videotaping, I have to be aware too of how far I move. Because I'm limited to the size of my green screen, I don't have an entire wall like we do here. I made it as big as I could. I wanted to stay away from it, so I had to get away from it. And because of my camera, that really shortens the angle that I can get in front of the green screen. So it's just stuff to be aware of if you ever shoot. You want your character to be obviously in front of the green screen the whole time, like totally engulfed by it. Cool. So now I've read my file in, we added key light, we did a rotoscope, and then I can pre-multiply it, and now I have basically a clean version of myself that I could use. And there's also one dot right there. Where did that come from? Right there. Okay, that's gone. Oops, there's some more stuff over there. Cool. All right, so now before I proceed any further, I just want to scrub through and just verify that my hand doesn't go out of frame. Because right there, you see my hand extends pretty far. Okay, and if I look at my roto, I'm pretty close. Yeah, that's good. Okay, we also want to look at the alpha channel and go through and make sure nothing kind of pops in there. There was one little dot that popped in, but I think that's going to be fine. Cool. Let me just get rid of that dot. It's still just a hair over. There we go. Okay. Cool. So now we have that. Now to fix the edges up a little bit, I can use like the erodes that we've used before. So just to give them a little bit of softness, I'm going to go before my pre-mult, and I'm going to add an erode blur. And just play with this a little bit. So this comes in a little bit, and then maybe it gets a little bit softer. I'll look at the alpha channel and just make sure that I'm seeing the correct thing. Oh, it's too much. There. There we go. Okay, and we'll really see this once we start putting it into our footage. Okay, you can go too far with this too. If you go obviously, like that, the guy just disappears. Okay, 0.8 seems like a good number. All right, cool. So now I have a clip, okay, and that's what we talked about before, is that everything we've done is just creating assets. So here's my VR system. Here is my cleanup area. This is, that's my cleanup area too. Where's my arm? There it is. Here's my 3D arm stuff. Okay, so everything we've done is just creating assets that we can then put together. So here's how we can put these together. This is one way. This is not the way you have to do it. Your end goal should be, whatever you're envisioning the end result to look like, okay? So the way that I put mine, just set him here and disconnect these. The way I did mine is I created a card and put that image on the card. And then I connected the card to the same scene that I have all of my other pieces of geometry locked into. So when you made all that geometry, so now you have the walls, I just made a card and put my guy inside that scene as well. So now when I come here and I'm looking at my scene, there he is. Now he's already placed about where I wanted him because I set up my card to be in that spot. If it'll show me, there we go. I had to actually move it and rotate it so that it was facing the correct direction. You'll notice that there is no color on him right now, so I have to add a material to this as well. So I'm going to add a pre-mult, nope, not pre-mult, a Fong. And I put the Fong before the card, and then I just connect all the diffuse and the specular, and I don't need the emission map connected. Everything else is fine. So now I can go to the Fong, and I can start to play with the color would come down, and the diffuse would go down or up. Why aren't you still lit? Oh, the light's behind him. No, it isn't. It's on the side. All right, let me look at it through my scan line and see if I get something. Yeah, he's lit there. I just don't know why he's not showing up here. Maybe my card is not set to lit. Textured, yes. I don't know. I'm going to assume that's just display. Well, whatever. So I can move him wherever I want him to be. Holy cow, look at that. Bless you. Okay, so he's getting lit up on this side, but then it's just like totally washed out. So he'll stay right where he is. That's the good spot. So I moved him, rotated, and positioned him. I also had to set up my camera that I would use to move around the scene. Okay, and there's also a light in the scene so that we have some sort of lighting that we can control. So this camera, this is what's going to animate. We have basically a projected room. This camera will then kind of move a little bit. So as we get into the scene, I may want the camera just to move over slightly. So I'm going to go to the beginning of this. I'm going to set a keyframe and also set a rotate. And then maybe by the end of this shot, I've moved over just a little bit. Maybe I moved in and over. And maybe rotated some. Now I have to be aware too that my my character doesn't have the ability to go above a certain point. The legs are cut off, so I can't go too far. He's purposefully positioned right where he's at because my original camera was about in this position, and he would be standing about where he would be standing in the real room. And so that's what's going to make this work. If he is way over here, it doesn't work. If he's too big, too small, it doesn't work. Just to give you an idea of that before we get any further, he's 11.5 scaled. If I set this to 10 and I move him down, that looks kind of miniature of where he should be. If I set it to, just to be even more ridiculous, 8, and I put him there, like he looks like he would be kneeling on the floor versus standing in front of the camera. And then if we go even further, like let's say 15, you know, there's not really a good spot for him to be and look correct and be able to see the hands coming out, because that's a big part of this. All right, so he's going to stay there. So I'm going to go to my camera. I go to the end. I've moved it a little bit. So now you can see the camera is adjusting as we're showing stuff. Cool. Okay, subtle movement. That's all I wanted on there, just so it looks like the scene is moving different than it originally was. All right, so now I can kind of decide how I want to connect everything else inside there. So I have right here. How did this get all messy? That wasn't messy a minute ago. Oh, because of all this. Let's just move that over. There we go. So now, just so I have a little bit of sanity in my nodes, instead of having all of this stuff happening over here with this, I grouped all the items, and now I just have one. I basically made my arm look the way I wanted the arm to look. It's not going to move until way up here. There it goes. I made the arm look the way I wanted it to look, and then I just grouped all the nodes together. Okay? And you just literally grab all the nodes and hit Control-G, and it makes this thing here, and then it puts them all inside of a group like this. And it basically says, okay, what's the input, which is going to be my image, and then this is all the stuff it does. It time offsets. I'll show you that in a minute. Does all the same stuff that it did. This time offsets, puts everything together. I do need to copy that and paste that right here. There we go. And then there's an output. Sometimes when you do a group, anything that has an input like this, an input will be connected to it. And what this is doing is, when we do a merge, there's an A and a B. Those are both inputs. The bottom arrow is an output. Every one of these inputs here is reflected back in this. So, save. Why aren't you updating? Oh, because this is make it look cool 1, not make it cool. Oops. So if I go down to the other one, there it is, you'll see it has 2 other arrows coming out of this because that group is now joined to that one, okay? So I don't need these other inputs, so I can just delete them. Okay, so I have one input, it comes into the top, that's my original image. It does all the stuff it did before. And then there's my output. Okay, so even my 3D stuff is still in here too. Okay, you can keep all the nodes over there. I could have just taken this whole chunk of stuff and just drug it over to here and connected it the same way that I'm doing now. Okay, there's no difference. It just makes this area a little bit easier to see. All right. Now, how these things go into the rest of the scene and how they get incorporated is up to you how you want to do it. If I take this, just like me, just like me, I can connect this to a card. And here it is. And if I make that bigger, I'm just going to go here and just set this to 5. There we go. And then rotate it 90 degrees. Oh, be aware too, because I did this. When I rotated my green screen footage around, I was backwards. So my name was backwards. I didn't notice it until I did a bunch of other stuff. I didn't do a bunch of stuff. So just be aware of that. Okay, so I can put it in here like this. I'm not going to go any further than just dropping it in like that so you can see it. And there will be the arm. Now the next part of that would be timing it out so that as my hand comes up to show the 3D geometry, which is the second time my hand comes up, that's when the arm would actually pop out. And it actually is like around like 500 or so is when that happens. Now what that gives me when I do that is it gives me the ability to basically just like I know where my hand is going to be and I can drop it there and it works. But what it doesn't give me is this kind of interactivity with it, okay? So it's basically just like a floating piece of geometry. Now what is neat about it, let's say that I had the 3D geometry for the arm, I could actually put it behind me just by going into 3D grabbing the card for that, there it is, and then moving it behind me, and now it would actually be behind the guy. So now it's like way back there. And I don't have to do any rotoscoping, cutting things out, it's just behind already, okay? So that's one way you could do it. I didn't like the way it looked, I did it, I played it, and then I said, nope, that's not good. So then what I did is I took my footage here. So this is now just footage. So ignore all the other stuff we've done before this point. Pretend that it's just a piece of video that I want to add something on top of, okay? If I'm adding something on top of it and I want it to move with it, what would I use? What have we done like for every single assignment except for the first one? Tracker, yep. So you want to track stuff. That's what I did. So I tracked my hand so that as my hand comes up like this and it's moving around, that piece of footage is actually like locked to my hand, okay? Now, because I set new keyframes, my tracker is no longer valid, so this is no good, so I have to make a new tracker. So I make a new tracker, I click it there, and just as a point of interest, there's a lot of stuff happening here, okay, a whole lot of stuff. For speed, you could actually write out, like render out this entire sequence, read it back in, and your scene will go a lot faster. So if you find that you're like, this is just going way too slow, you hit the play button and you're just waiting and waiting and waiting. Like even going back and forth, this is taking a long time. I could go right after the scan line, make a write node, and write out my footage. I'm not going to do it, but you can just write out the footage, dot, pound, 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 and then dot tiff. And then I would then read it back in and then start doing my tracking from there, okay? So it's definitely something you could do, and it'll speed up the workflow here. Now, if I decided I wanted to change my camera, I'd have to rewrite it out and then redo all that. If I change the coloring, same thing, rewrite it out, do all that stuff. But just so you can see it. All right, so I'm going to track my hand. It may help to have After Effects up in the background and to control click on this so you can watch the frames. And my first frame is 0, which makes it easy in Nuke because my first frame is 0. And what I'm going to do is look at where I actually move around. So right here at about 200, that's where my hand's coming up. Okay? So I can even hit the star key inside of After Effects and I'll put a marker. And then I'll go a little bit further. And right about 350 is when I do my first swipe. So I'll put a marker there. And then right about 390, I do my second swipe right there. And then right about 450, yep, I drop it down. Okay? So these markers are there just so that while I'm in Nuke and I'm scrubbing through, I don't have to wait. Because now I know my hand comes up at 200, there's a swipe, and then it goes down at 450. So when I do my tracking, I track from 200 to 450. My swipe thing, that's all manual. I just did that by hand, which I'll show. And then way over here, this is my other one. So this is my hand coming up for that one. And then it goes down right about there. All right, so 200 to 450. So I go to my tracker, I add a track. Oops. Make sure I'm at, let's say, 20. I actually have to wait till my hand gets up there. There we go. Oops. I'm going to delete the keyframes before this and move my tracker where it needs to be. So delete all the keyframes before. All right. I'm just going to delete that and then add a new one. I should have been deleting that, but it wasn't. Okay. So I'm going to track part of my hand. And what I want to do is try to track this side of my hand. So I'm tracking my pinky side and my thumb side. And that way, as my hand like turns a little bit, the model that's in my hand could turn a little bit also. Okay? We'll see how that works. So I'm going to go say track range and say 210 to 470, let's say. Past 450, but that's fine. Okay, it's not going to be perfect. I don't care if it's perfect. This is some sort of like app hologram type thing floating above my hand. So if it's not exactly where I want it to be, I don't care because it's new technology, so it can be off a bit. This process too will go quicker if you have footage versus projecting all these images onto 3D geometry, lighting it, putting it into a green screen, and then doing that. We don't realize it, but all of the stuff that we've done is being calculated for every single frame. When I green screened, it goes to frame 1, 2, 3, cuts out the green screen, adds the roto to it, pre-multiplies it, adds the erode. For the background, it's doing all the other stuff that the background would do. If this goes too far, you can always hit stop. Or if it decides that it can't do anymore, then it'll just stop itself. And then you can just say play again. There it goes. And it got a little bit further, then I'll hit play again. And what's happening is it's just losing the track. And I think that should be good. Nope, that's a 409. So let me go a bit further. Okay. Remember with one track, obviously we haven't done this since earlier in the semester. With one track, we can basically track just position, okay? With two tracks, we can do rotation, and with three, we can do scale. I don't need scale in this case, I just need position and rotation. Okay, so there's a track. Now I could go through and track it more, better. I do want to hit the tail end. So I do want to come up here to about 210 and just go back a bit. That's good. Just until my hand moves down, which is fine. So that's track 1. I'm going to add another track. Oops, not yet. I'm going to go to my hand is up. There we go. Then I'll add another track. I'll turn number 1 off. I'll take number 2 here and put it onto the thumb. Go a little bit bigger. And then I'll just track this backwards and forward. Now in some cases, if this is something that needs to be spot on, I could have put little dots on my fingers, and those dots could have been highly reflective, something that the tracker would pick up a lot easier. Yep, it totally went off. And then we could just remove those later. Oops, it paused, there we go. All right, so here's frame 200 right there. All right, so 208, the thumb is there, so let's go back 1 frame. Yep, so it just jumped away, so I'm just going to move this down to the thumb again, and then track next frame. There's just so much movement, it's just jumping out of there, and it's my skin tone is not, you know, a totally different color. All right, that should be sufficient. I'm just going to clear everything that's before that. Oops, I want to clear all. I want that. There we go. Clear everything before this one. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the end of it and track the other way. Now what's cool about doing stuff like tracking your hand or doing these kinds of simple tracks is that if you're in After Effects, you can actually tie things together so that, let's say that I put my fingers like this and went like that. I actually have like a piece of geometry picture like between my fingertips. And I can move it around and distort it, which is like, I think it's awesome. Where's my thumb still in there? Yes, okay, so keep going. You could also have, let's say you're doing something for a radio, you could go like that, and you could have like a sound wave traveling between your fingers, okay? So you can do lots of different stuff with just these little tracking things. Why we spent so much time on them. Oops. Yes, I know that. Go back a bit. There it's good. And the next frame, you're gone, so we just move that down. And the next frame, you're gone again, so we move that over. We're going to shrink this box a little bit. There we go. Okay, so that's good. So I've got enough tracking information for both of those things. So now I'm going to turn both tracks on. I'm going to turn them to translates, rotates. There we go. And then I'll make a match move transform. Okay. So once I have this match move, it's odd that it already connected to those ones. It's weird. Whatever. Once I have this, then I can take my green screen footage, because that was my hologram footage. There it is. And paste it in. So I'm going to slide this over to this side. I'm going to track this. Close all the windows. And it's going to come in at obviously too big of a size. It doesn't know what size we want. So just like we did like 10 weeks ago, we'll add another transform node. I'll scale it down. I'll rotate it to fit. And then eventually I need to merge this back into the mix. So I'm just going to add a merge node. I just need to move some of these out of the way so that you can see what I'm doing. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to take my merge node and drop it into right under the scanline render. And now I just go to that transform I just created, and I just move it so that it's in position. So this is going to be something that's going to be like above my hand. I also may want to come to that merge node here and take the mix down a little bit so it's a little bit transparent, or maybe even change it to maybe a plus. Maybe not that. Let's see if any of these other ones look not average. That's neat, but not what I want. Nope, nope, nope. I think plus is going to probably be the best one for us. I guess screen works pretty good, but I have a lot of control. I guess I'll just go back to over. Okay, I'll go back to over, just pull it down. All right, so it's semi-transparent. All right, so now if I go back to frame 200 and hit play, I can see what it's going to do. So what's happening here is my hand is in position and it's doing its thing. Now, because there's two trackers here, if my hand moved just a little bit like this, that whole picture is going to shift. So in some cases, like in this specific video, I know the one for this hand is not very good for rotation because it is all over the place. Because right now, even though it's rotated like this, if I were to fix it like that, by the time I get way down here, or not, there it is, it's going to be rotated again, but that should be fine there. No, it actually tracked better this time than it did last time. Oh yeah, there it is. Oh, it's still at the beginning, so that doesn't matter. Okay. Sweet. So that actually worked a lot better. Cool. So now what I need to do is create a way for this to actually pop onto the screen. I actually want the position maybe to be up a bit higher, so it's above my hand. Like that. There we go. And then right here is where I think I want that transition to happen, where it actually like pops into the screen. And that's a weird rotation there. Oops, and then definitely there. So to fix these weird rotations, I'm going to go to my trackers. So tracker 3 is where it's getting this information from. And I'm just going to make sure that I cleared any tracking data before this point on each one of these. Okay, and what that will do is when I come down here and I'm playing with this transform, it's basically going to stay in that position right here. And then once it goes past that point, it's tracked. And I'll do the same thing at the end when I get to it. Okay, so let me go back here. Okay, so that's where it's going to start taking control, is right about there. So I'm going to go to that transform. I'm going to put my pivot, so I hold control, and I drag, there we go, this down to my palm, like that. And I'm just going to scale this. So there's scale. I'm going to go up, let's say, 5 frames or 8 frames or something. I'll set a key. I'm going to rewind it a bit. And I'm just setting my start and end point. I want it to start at 0 and just like bloop, like grow. So now when I hit play, you'll see how it comes out of my hand. It's magical. And then if I hit play here, you'll see how it's now tracked to my hand. So as my hand is moving, we're getting a little bit of movement on it, which is nice because it then feels like I'm in control of the item, versus it being on a card, which makes it feel flat and kind of boring. This has a bit more life to it. Okay, now if I rewind this and hit play again, I can see what it looks like. You can see that looks like 10 times better than the other one did. Okay, now when I get to the end of this at 450-ish, here's where it starts to take a turn, right? So I don't want that to happen. Oops, hit stop. I don't necessarily want to delete my keyframes here, but what I do want to do is this looks like it's a pretty steady rotation. The other one was like crazy the entire time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to where it starts looking weird, right there. Set a rotation keyframe. Go to where it's done, right about there, and then fix it. Okay, and then let me go back and see if that looks odd. Yeah, I think I want position keyframes also because I think it just needs that as well. So I'm going to set some position keyframes here. I'm going to go up to where I set those rotation keyframes. It's thinking, there we go. And then I'll just move this down to like that. Okay. Now what I'm doing is the first one, if you remember the audio, when I say I can set it aside or whatever, I can set it here, it's floating, so I don't want to get rid of it. I don't want it to like shrink into my hand, so I want it to stay there. So at 443, I'm done tracking. It's just like sitting here in open space. You can have yours float, you can have it kind of shift, you can do, you know, as long as it looks good, you can do whatever you want. So I need to go back to my tracker and just make sure there's no more tracking data after this, because everything should be locked in. So track 1, I'm just going to clear forward. Track 2, I'm also going to clear forward. So that should be good there. Cool. So that works. So now I hit play, and now we can see how this thing is now attached to my hand, and then I'm just going to set it aside, and it'll just be stuck there. I haven't talked about the swiping yet. I'll obviously mention that in a second. There it is. And you can see how the thing just like sits there and just does nothing. Okay. Another thing you can do to speed it up, if you're not concerned about the image quality, you can take this down. So this is like a quarter. So it'll play back quicker. So you can at least see the motion a bit quicker, but you're not obviously going to see a high detailed image quicker. So you can see how much faster this is previewing. Cool. All right. So now the swiping part. So for the swiping, essentially what we need are 3 images, boom, 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 just one right after the other. And what happens is, imagine we're cropping out the center and we're just showing one image at a time. So we're just transforming which image that we're seeing. So imagine we had 3 images on a film strip. We have a little viewfinder and we're just moving the images through that viewfinder. That's all we're doing, okay? So I brought in this image. I showed that before. I reformatted it, and then I transformed it. I brought in this image, I reformatted it, and transformed it. All of these have to be the same size in order for this to work. I can't have one huge and one small. So they're all formatted at the exact same resolution, which is 1280. Now for the transform, one is transformed to the left, one is transformed to the right, and one is right in the middle. So that's the only difference there. So if I go here and look at this image, you'll see this one is right in the center. If I look at this one, it's off to the left. If I look at this one, it's off to the right. Okay, I can't see it, but I know it's there. Okay, then I merge all these together. Now before I told you don't do a merge like this where you dropped everything into one. In this instance, it's fine to do because this is basically a film strip I'm creating versus something else, versus a merge where I'm adjusting stuff. You could also just go into Photoshop, make one film strip, and put the images right next to each other too. That is a completely acceptable thing to do as well. Okay. This way it's a lot easier to swap out because I can just change this image and it makes it something different. Or if I had a movie, same thing. It would just be a movie there. So they're merged all together. So now I have this big film strip. I transform it, and that's how I get from one image to the other. So the little markers that I set here at 350, at 390, and then that was it, just the two, 350 and 390. I set keyframes on this transform to move it. So if I hit play, you'll see 350, it transitions over. And then at 390, it transitions over again. And I allowed basically 10 frames. I found that's a good number for me to swipe and you to see the swipe. I don't want it to be like, boom, it disappears. I want to see that transition. Just like if you've had After Effects, you want to see this motion blur. You want to see the movement of that. And if it's too quick, you don't see that, okay? So if it happens at 350, I went to 345 to 355, and that's my transition. For the other one, I started at 385, I ended at 395, and that's the transition for that. Now I found, I'm going to turn this crop off so you can see. Wait, is that the right one? Yeah, that's the right one. I'm going to preview this. So this is the result of it. And this is what I got at first. So I got all my images like blocked together because I never cropped to tell it that I don't want to see the outside bounds. So this crop node basically just makes sure that I'm looking at just that one. So I don't think I changed anything on this. I just added the crop, and that was it, okay? And then that's what connects to my UI, the thing I showed last time. So there's my image. And so now when I hit play, it's about there. It swipes and goes to the next one, swipes and goes to the next one. Okay? And then I have my glow on it. I have my transform to get it in position. And then my match move, which puts it in the right position. And then that merge. Okay? And then there's that piece of footage. Now for the arm, I did the same exact thing. Here's my arm. Here's all the stuff I did to it, breaking out all the layers, putting them all together. And then I transformed it, put it on a car. I didn't do any of this. Just ignore that. I transformed it, I match moved it, and then I put it back into the rest of the geometry. So right about here is where the arm comes in. Now this will get annoying. If you've done this part, like I said before, you don't need to do the part where I added the particles. You definitely can do that. It's something to play with. You don't have to do that. If you do it though, that will constantly come up like it is here. Like it's already driving me crazy. So what you can do is, on here I added a frame hold right after it. And what the frame hold does is it locks that to a specific frame. So if I do a frame hold on frame 1 or 0, then it never updates the particles, which means I basically have a still image for this that I can use for placement. So where was that at? 500? Yeah, 500. So at about 500, that's where that next one would come in. Oops, I hit pause again. And then this one, I do have it scale up just like the other one. There it is. And it is off a bit, so let me just take my transform and scoot it over. And there's me moving it. And then eventually I put my hand down and it goes away, and then I scale it back down to nothing. Like pretty close to right here. It goes away. Okay? Now, on this, because of the animation, the arm animates from 0 to 120. That's when I set it up. This animation happens around 500 and so on, like 500 to 600. I need to offset that animation. So inside of my nodes, I added all these time offsets to offset that animation so it starts at frame 500 or 520 or something. That way it's not static. So I have to add it to the original image. I have to add it to the wire and transfer. I had to add it to the wires. And then I had to also add it to the read geometry node, because otherwise the particles would then not be offsetting. And then when I'm ready to render this out, I would turn my frame hold, oops, back to here. Turn my frame hold off. Oops. Let me cancel that again. Sorry, one more thing that I did change. I also told, my particle emitter to start emitting at frame 500. That way the particles aren't emitting the entire time before that. That was another thing. Oh, and there goes Nuke. Okay, so the major part of this assignment, you're tracking, projecting the room, you're adding the green screen version of me in there, you're doing the 3D layers stuff, and then you're doing the stuff popping in. Okay, the arm doesn't have to have the particles, but you have to break it apart still. You have to have some sort of hologram that goes on top. You can do a fancier one with lots of layers. You can do simple ones with just an image basically on top of it. Okay? And then the rest of it is just polishing. Once you get the basic stuff, I say basic, obviously it's not basic. Once you get the general stuff set up, then it's just kind of going through and tweaking what you want things to look like. Let's try this again. Let's go set this to 1 to 1. There we go. So some things, see, I just don't videotape well. I just don't. Some things may look odd, like this is really crisp, I am really blurry. So I may need to adjust that. So on my original footage, like after the fact, after I've done all this stuff, wherever I'm at here, where did it go? Oh, there it is. On my original footage, I did a denoise on myself. Let me show you what this looks like before we go any further there. Okay. Let me go to the end of this, just so you can see before and after stuff. Okay, so I'm really fuzzy right there. Still fuzzy, but not as fuzzy, I guess. So I added a denoise, and then I added a sharpen, and then I did a little erode because the Sharpen was like giving me a weird outline. And then there's my pre-multiply. Okay, so this one I look a bit clearer than I did in the other one. Okay, so that's after. I'm not starting with that. I'm going back after I have everything kind of slapped together. Oops, I didn't even connect that into the mix here. Don't die on me. This. Scoot that up. And then, yes, we'll connect all of these over here. And now I look a bit crisper. I may want to soften some of that too, so I may say, okay, well, I'm going to go into where my arm is coming in, which is not there, it's further down. Right there. And I may want to add, like, let's say a defocus or a blur or something on here. It's too much. Yeah, maybe something like that, just like 1 pixel. That seems to be, yeah, 1 pixel is not enough. 2 pixels. Yeah, 2 pixels seems good. That looks maybe a little bit too crisp. Okay. I may want to also adjust colors. So maybe I want to adjust the color of my arm here. I don't like the way that looks. I'll pull some of the green out of it and make it more blue. Take some of the red out as well. Okay, so maybe I want to do that. I don't know, I have 2 of those. I'm probably viewing the wrong area. I may want to adjust my background. I may want to adjust the light. I may want to adjust a million different things. Some things I can't adjust at this point. My original camera that I animated to go from left to right, if I screw with that, I've messed up all the tracking that I just did and I have to retrack, so I wouldn't want to mess with that. But if I come up here and I want to adjust the brightness of the light that I'm using to light my scene, totally fine to do it. If I want to adjust any of the projections that are there, I can adjust any of the projections. I could add more projections. I could adjust the rotos, whatever. I could adjust what my video looks like as far as coloring goes. I could add a color correction to the entire scene if I want to. Let's not do that one. Let's go to the very, very end, which is right here. I'll just go right here, I guess. Come on. And maybe I want to add just a tint to everything. And by doing a tint to everything, you'll find that stuff feels like it belongs a little bit better because everything is already tinted the same thing. So if everything's tinted blue, this is a bit extreme, but if everything's tinted blue, you'll feel like, okay, they belong together because everything's tinted the same color. You may also want to add a noise at the end of it. Not that noise. Oops, that's the wrong one. You may want to add grain at the end of it. That's the one I wanted. Okay? Because again, if things have the same grain in all the stuff, I'm going to turn the alpha off here. Then again, it'll feel like they're together. Now this is horrible grain. The default usually is. You want to shrink the size of stuff. Something like that might work. And then let's take the intensities down. Blue is usually the most intense. So I'm just going to double the blue. Okay, so that's looking pretty good there, like that. I may want to add a vignette. I don't have that app on here. Roto. So I'm just going to merge a roto into this and make a constant. There we go. And notice how I'm not removing the noise at the end of this. You want some noise in your scene, so usually I remove the noise at the beginning, add the stuff to it, and then add the noise back in. That way everything's kind of a uniform noise. If I don't remove it at the beginning and then I just add it at the end, then all my original stuff has like double the noise to it. There we go, there we go, there we go. Cool. This needs to be inverted for the roto. And then probably adjust that a little bit. And then maybe do another grade at the end where I just kind of play with some of these values. That's all right. Another thing I might add into the scene here, just way up top where I'm coming in, because I still feel like I'm maybe cut out too much, is right here after the pre-mult. I'm going to add a light wrap. And as I do this, I'm only viewing the one thing. I'm just like viewing this area. And I'm going to say generate wrap only. And we'll take the intensity up. Foreground blur. And then my background. Drop that on there, yeah. I'm just dropping whatever on here right now. I think I'll take the middle image. That there, okay. So what this is going to do is it's going to basically create a silhouette around me. There we go. Now if I turn that off, you'll see a little bit of a glow around the edges, and that will help me kind of feel a little bit more into the scene. It's a bit bright, so I'm going to pull the diffuse up and the intensity down. There we go. All right, so that's better. So now when I come back down to here, way at the bottom, and I go back up to where that is so we can do a before and after, you can see what the results are of that. So you'll see how it just lightens the edges just a hair, so it feels like I'm kind of more into that scene. Cool. So once I get this set up, I write it out just like we did before. I go to my last node, add a right node. That's right geo. I put it in my outgoing folder. I make sure that I label it Sarcona out from nuke, whatever you want to call it, dot a bunch of pound signs, and then dot .tiff. Okay, hit the render button, it goes out. Now, there's a voiceover, obviously. So when I am done with this, I go back into After Effects, and as long as I have the same file, I should be able to just drop that right into this composition and put it right on top of it, okay? So I'll render out one frame just so we can see it drop in. So I'll say render, oops, make sure I put it in the right folder. 60, putting it all together. New folder. And I'm just going to do frame 1. That way we'll get frame 1 out. Cool. Oops. There we go. So now we can just drop this in. It's too small, that's fine. I'm just going to go to my comp settings and change this to 960 by 540. And so now, once I have the whole sequence in there, everything will line up perfectly, okay? Now, because we're obviously going back into After Effects, some of the stuff that we did here right at the end, if you're more comfortable doing it in After Effects, you can do it in After Effects. If I want to add which buttons am I hitting? Noise right here, that can have grain right here inside After Effects. So Nuke isn't the only program that has noise. After Effects also has it. There's also color corrections, obviously. You can adjust the hue and saturation. I can desaturate this a bit. Maybe tint the color some, not that color, not that color. That looks pretty hideous right there. Let's just ignore that one. All right. What else? You could add the vignette inside here too. You could add basically any of the other features, okay? And then when you render it out, QuickTime H264 done. Cool. So that should be it. That should wrap it up. I went and did a lot of other stuff you didn't have to do, but I want you to see these things because obviously Nuke is an important tool for the industry. This, what? Yeah, that's just playing around. One of my students in another class just got a job at a company. So this stuff here where we did the arm, right? So all of the stuff that we did here, remember I told you the benefit of doing it inside Nuke is that if we ever rendered new stuff out, we just change these nodes and it all populates, right? So the company uses Photoshop. And what they do is that they'll, I'm going to import this image here and just hit open. They'll use Photoshop to do all this stuff. So here's all those layers in Photoshop, and then what they would do is move the layers around, they would rename them, they would make masks, they would do all the same stuff that we did inside Nuke, but they would do it basically on every single image. And so if they had something where they have 10 images of cars they have to do, then that's 10 times they have to go into Photoshop and do the same thing over and over and over again, okay? So if you think at some point, hey, this is something that I want to pursue further, definitely keep playing with it because this is the kind of stuff that's going to set you apart. Being able to do that and save yourself hours and hours and hours worth of work is definitely worthwhile versus doing that because that's like way too much stuff. Especially if there's obviously better ways to do it. Cool. Any questions yet? No?